Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and today I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Wildy, Simmonds and Hill. It's a first-class book, and it's one that I think will be directly relevant to many people because it deals with an area of law which I think is of interest to a wide readership. It's Public Rights of Way, the Essential Law, and it's been written by Angela Sydenham, who many will know from the past from her extremely knowledgeable work on land law, which I'm indebted to because I read her important works when I was studying law rather a long time ago now. Elizabeth wrote the main review, and I have obviously discussed it with her, and I'm going to do the presentation. The title we've given for the review is More Complicated Than You Might Think. Public Rights of Way, Succinctly Explained. Let's look at the little paperback first of all. Lovely view at the front, there we go, English countryside. And you've got, that's the front, then there's the spine, and then on the back a little bit of blurb. And it also mentions a little bit about Angela and what she's been doing recently. You can see at the back there. She's been involved in a lot of areas of legal activity. So she will be known to many of you. The back of the book has a short index by page numbering, and again it has quite a lot of useful information. It says references are to page numbers. The front of the book, again, Public Rights of Way, and then there's the front page there, then there's the blurb about Wildy there, and then you've got the contents section, starting off of course with basic information, rights of the public, creation of rights of way, and then we run through all the way through that. It's dealing very much with what happens when you purchase land and you have a right of way in it. It features in some television programs from time to time as well. So there are 10 main chapters in the book itself, and then the last chapter is further reading, and then there's a preface from Angela. The law is as stated on the 1st of March 2019, and then you've got the table of cases, all the usual suspects there. Then some statutes, suspects there as well. Then you've got the statutory instruments, much more detailed. And then you've got some EU material, which will remain whether we go or not. Other materials, international and otherwise. This is in fact DEFRA statements as well, planning inspectorate. Then lists of abbreviations, quite useful. There's quite a lot of abbreviation material in this book. Then we start on basic information, starting off an introduction. A public right of way is a highway. The terms highway and public rights of way, or public right of way, are used interchangeably, although sometimes the term highway is used to denote the physical route rather than the right itself. So there you go, you've got a lot of authoritative information. I think this is very relevant to both practitioners, advisors, and in fact laypersons, in other words unrepresented parties who may have a problem. Obviously if it becomes very detailed, you're going to become it's going to become very, very technical probably, and there will be a lot of legal issues that may crop up, but initially it will give you some idea of where you stand with public rights of way and what the basic law and the subject is. So what do we say? Public rights of way is a particularly complex area of law, as the author Angela Sydenham duly reminds us in what is an important title paperback from Wildy, Simmonds and Hill. Certainly, public rights of way continue to present many a legal challenge, especially for farmers and landowners, and I'm sure they will be finding this book of great help too, because the landowner is the one who will have or could potentially have a lot of problems. Obviously it also affects their tenants, not to mention planning officials on local authorities and generally members of the public, walkers, ramblers and so forth, who basically understandably get confused by what is quite a hefty body of law, so as do basic purchasers and prospective purchasers of land, because these can be serious encumbrances on the land without getting into too much technical detail. So you've got to be well aware of what the problems are. Further complications emerge from the fact that the relevant legislation in this area continues to hover on the brink of change, because there are going to be changes as more and more people like to certainly exert their rights. They like to do various things. So therefore, it's important to know what the changes are, where we are at the moment and where we're going to go. Fortunately, the book is distinguished by its outstanding clarity, which means that while the subject is admittedly complicated, the book is a relatively easy read. And of course, Angela does express herself very well, and as I indicated at the beginning of my remarks, I'm indebted to her for the work she's done, because the work she produced when I was a student was very helpful indeed. She's widely known and highly regarded for her expertise in this again, highly specialised subject, and she points out that a number of changes to the recording of public rights of way will be introduced, presumably in the near future with some luck. That is sections 20 to 26 and Schedule 7 of the Deregulation Act 2015. Its provisions, as she informs us, were originally expected to come into force in April 2016, but you can always blame the Brexit effect on this one, because from March 2019 the relevant regulations were still awaited, and there will be a bit of a long wait until they sort themselves out in Parliament and start addressing some of the more important issues post-Brexit, if that's ever going to be possible, because at the moment there has been no proper carrying through of the domestic agenda, and it's actually going to be noticeable if this continues because of the effect it's going to have, because we're going to have to do quite a lot of enacting of new laws in the future just to keep up with the changes. However, that's for another day. The inbuilt advantage, I think, of this book is that despite these awkward delays that we've got, the prospective legislation is nonetheless covered, because I would think at some stage relatively soon it will come on the statute book. A quick glance, of course, at the helpfully detailed table of contents gives readers a good example and a good idea of the depth and breadth of the subject matter as covered in the book, from rights of the public and creation of rights of way itself to discussions on highway authority, the planning inspectorate, and much, much more besides, including coastal areas and sites of SSI, special scientific interest. Can I just say the planning inspectorate, obviously, there's a lot more on that area in other Wildy publications and other books. But I still believe the planning inspectorate role is widely misunderstood. I say that as an ex-vice chairman of planning committees, having been elected councillor and having chaired planning meetings. It's quite clear to me a lot of people have very basic knowledge. I think this book helps us, especially in those areas of outstanding natural beauty and in rural communities, which I have certainly represented in the past. So therefore I do think the book is of help. Notably, Angela has formerly served as Chief Legal Advisor to the Country Landowners Association and has written several books on the law relating to rural property, and will be known and remembered by a wide range of law students like me. She has also contributed to the section on commons in Hallsbury Laws of England, and therefore comes to this work with a clarity which I'm very grateful for. It's a clear, concise and practical book, and I think it should be considered indispensable for practitioners in this area of law, and actually for any or all parties who are going to be involved in or affected by the wide range of issues which are raised, disputes about who can do what and so forth. The publication date of the paperback edition is cited as at the 5th of April 2019. Let's just have one last look at the book. There it is, paperback, as I say, the back of it there. And then just opening it in the middle, you can see the detail. There's a lot of footnoting and a lot of justification of everything that's said. This is dealing with diversions and extinguishments. There you can see how you get rid of rights of way. Then you've got things like highways authorities, a very important area too. But a big thank you to everybody who's been involved in this book. Very grateful indeed for knowing about it. It's extremely helpful. So thank you to all. Bye bye.